Okay, so welcome. My name is Carley Hauck. I am so happy to have you all here. I'm going to be talking to you about the need for conscious leadership, and I'm also going to be doing a deeper dive about this new public offering called the Conscious Leadership Lab that I am offering for the first time to folks because we have a leadership crisis going on. And I'm going to share a little bit more about, why that is, what we can do to really support leaders right now. I'm going to share about my background, about all the research that I've done around this topic, why I'm so passionate to be in service. And then I'm going to go through kind of the nuts and bolts of the program and why it works. And I'm going to leave it open for Q&A at the end. And I will probably talk for about 30 minutes. I welcome, any questions that you have, but I'm also going to try to maybe push a few of them to the end. And this will be recorded. I'll leave some links in the chat. I'm kind of going to go back and forth between sharing a few slides, but then also just being here. I like the more experiential component. I feel like many of us, look at slides and screens all day. So let me share a little bit about myself, and then I'd love to hear where you're all zooming in from. And if you want to have fun in this in this meet, I love the visual effects of Meet. They always have really fun visual screens. So if you decide you want to be in Africa, you can be in Africa during this meeting. Or if you want to be on glamping, they have some really fun ones. One of my team members and I, we often play around. So it's one of the ways we can create connection in this virtual world, right? So with that said, let me go ahead and share a little bit about myself. So I have been essentially serving as an HR business partner with the executive suite and then senior stakeholders of HR. And I've partnered with them to really operationalize and design and deliver around some of the complex people problems and people programs. And so that looks everywhere from onboarding, talent development, performance management, culture. And then what I think is probably the most important and the biggest lever is leadership development. And that is really the area that I have had a lot of invitations to design, to build, to deliver internally for companies. And in this time, I really see that we haven't prepared leaders for the kind of complexity and uncertainty and the distribution of a worldwide, remote, mostly workplace. And this is why I have really wanted to be in greater service. I have also been developing this conscious leadership framework over a decade. I have served thousands of leaders from first-time managers all the way up to the executive suite, doing team coaching, doing executive coaching. And I have also been a senior lecturer at Stanford University, teaching on a lot of these concepts and leadership and management for over a decade. I have served as a senior lecturer at UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business, to first and second year MBAs, to the executive education leaders, and then also at various international MBA programs, including Rennes School of Business, which is right outside of Paris, France. So that is kind of how I've distilled all of the information in this particular program. And this is a lighter touch program, the Conscious Leadership Lab. Typically, I have come in and designed and delivered and scaled and managed 6 to 9 month leadership development programs, again, from first-time managers all the way up to director and above, and then working with VPs and the C-suite. And some of those companies that I have been privileged to partner with and serve are Asana, Capital One, Bank of Montreal. Now they were Bank of the West, Pixar, Genentech, Hope Lab, nonprofits, high growth startups. LinkedIn was actually my very first client back in 2010, pre-IPO. So I'm very excited to bring this public offering, which is 6 weeks versus 6 to 9 months, because our leaders need something now, and budgets have been really slashed across the board. So this allows it to be more accessible. And why this program right now? Well, as we all know, we're in a pivotal time of change. And this is requiring a different set of skill sets, a different level of consciousness, frankly, to be able to lead from empathy amidst lots of uncertainty and complexity. And I really believe that business and leaders have the greatest opportunity to influence a new world, because what happens at work is a microcosm for what happens in the greater world. So if we're wanting to create more belonging, more humanity amidst the world, we have to start in our teams. We have to start at work, because people come together from all parts of the world with lots of different experiences, and we can start to have that ripple effect be worldwide. And that's what I love about working with leaders and what I love about working in business. And leaders that have prioritized their own learning and development and essentially have really focused in on these new types of leadership skills, they're able to create these human-centered teams and navigate ambiguity and sustain trust, psychological safety, create innovation when things are just very complex in a way that's going to support business and the planet. So before I kind of, move into some more stats, I'm so curious, where are you all zooming in from? And tell me more about your role, if you're willing to share. And you don't have to, there's no pressure. But if you want to share aloud, if you want to pop it in the chat.
I can start. So hi, Carly, and hi, everyone on the call today.
I like your screen, by the way.
I know. Well, I came from a yoga class, so I thought this maybe increased the vibe. But my name is Sadie Doyle. I actually am in a similar line of work as Carly, but I do it in-house at companies. So my previous job was a director of talent, performance, and learning. And right now I'm in between jobs, kind of looking for something new and trying to prioritize some of my own development to keep things fresh, to do some critical thinking and not just let my brain go. I'm calling in from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm happy to be here to learn more about the program.
Thanks for coming. Yeah. And
I love joining something like this. So many
go ahead.
like-minded people. I'm also a yogi. Sadie, thanks for having us. Carly, I'm calling in from San Diego, California. I'm also in between roles. My last role was Vice President of HR at DermTech. Unfortunately, declared bankruptcy earlier this summer. So I'm enjoying a sabbatical with my teenage kids and just happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thanks for coming. And then Kevin and Scott, you don't have to chime in, but if you would love to, I'd love to, hear where you're from, and you can pop in the chat. Just wait. Calling in from Louisville, Kentucky on the Indiana side. Awesome. Thanks for being here. And I don't know if Scott's going to share, but call it the sunny side. Well, that's good. It's good to have sun, isn't it? Okay, so I'm going to just keep on going and share a little bit more about various aspects of this program. So what has been found in the research is that leader and manager effectiveness was cited as HR leaders' #1 priority in 2023, but I would also say that's 2024. In fact, Culture Amp said that 2024 is the year of the manager, or what I would like to say is the year of the leader, because at the end of the day, nobody really wants to be managed. We actually want to be inspired. We want to have a deeper purpose for why we're here. And that's where I like to really bring in the word leader, because we need a different set of skill sets to lead. And this is where I believe that there's the greatest opportunity for workplaces and HR to really prioritize leadership development. The problem that we can see is that leaders and managers have more responsibilities than ever before. They're managing these hybrid teams, they're trying to provide flexibility, they're navigating mental health and well-being and trauma. They're trying to motivate and keep their teams engaged while also actually making sure that they're putting on the oxygen mask first. And most leaders and managers were not trained adequately to manage people, and not to manage people with the needs of today, of empathy, of creating and sustaining psychological safety, of really looking after people's mental well-being and mental health. They actually need to be working with a different set of skill sets and embodying that. And what I have learned through all of my years of research and really developing this conscious leadership framework, and this isn't going to be news to you all, but we lead from the inside out. So whatever we're cultivating on the inside is what actually shows up on the outside. And so in my book and in the research that I've been doing, I often will say the inner game rules the outer game. And I was not the first person to develop the inner game. The inner game came actually, I think, around in like the 1980s through the inner game of tennis, but it really does apply to all things. And so I'd like to share with you the inner game and what I have distilled in my research. So the inner game is the qualities and the skills and the leadership capabilities, again, that determine how we show up at work and in the world. And if you have developed these types of skills, what I have found in the research, and I'm going to go into it in a little bit more depth, is that we are able to create and sustain psychological safety. We're able to be better listeners. We're able to inspire purpose and meaning, build belonging, and really have teams that don't want to leave. You know, these are the teams that really want to follow you. And so what are these 9? I'm going to share my screen right now. And hopefully y'all can see this. So we have psychological well-being, we have empathy, we have self-management, we have resilience, which is really this growth mindset. We have physiological well-being. We have humility, self-belonging, self-awareness, and mindfulness. So as you can see, a lot of these are things that we're developing on the inside. These are the leadership capabilities. And as you can see, the well-being is in the center. So if you were, really like looking at how this is cascading out, every single one of these 9 are on a continuum, which means that they influence one another. And if we have self-awareness, that's actually the foundation to have self-management and create greater empathy and create resilience, which is really this growth mindset of not why is this happening to me, but how am I going to learn and grow through this? And then the psychological and the physiological well-being are interacting with one another, and you really can't have one without the other. The ability to be a leader that can be vulnerable and can say, I don't have it all figured out, and oops, I made a mistake, and how do I course correct, is vital in these times, because no one is going to be able to figure it all out with the amount of uncertainty and complexity. Self-belonging is this level of self-love, self-acceptance, self-compassion, self-forgiveness. And that might sound fluffy, and even using the word love in the workplace, but if you're not actually caring for the people on your team, why would they want to be on your team? Why would they want to be joining your company? But the only way that we can actually cascade belonging outward is we have to cultivate it inside for ourselves first. So when someone is triggered or is having a bad day and they come across aggressive, or they don't, deliver in the way that I was hoping for, the only way that I can really be compassionate for that person, because in the moment I'm actually really upset, I'm really triggered, I'm frustrated, right? But I have to have compassion for those feelings and that experience first, because I can't expect that person is going to change. I can actually have that compassion for myself, and then I can see, you know what, this person is having a bad day. I've had bad days. I can have compassion and forgiveness for this person, and I can also call this person in and create a different agreement so that we actually have a different outcome. And then mindfulness is our ability to be in the present moment. I can be mindful that I'm not going to say that thing right now, because that's actually going to erode psychological safety. So these are some of the 9. And I want to share a small story. So my sister, who I love dearly, she was just promoted to a leadership position. She was on the fence about whether or not she wanted to step into leadership. And she's a first-time manager, no leadership training whatsoever. I'm not going to call out the company that she's with. I'm not even going to call out her name. But she was assigned a team of 15 people. That's crazy. And this is not the exception. This is the norm. Now, she has me as her sister. She's read my book, but it's a different thing to go through training, to have coaching, to have, a peer group, and to have a team that is so big. I just don't see how she can be successful. And not only is it a big team, the research has found through like Tony Lencioni and all of these other team research studies, the 5-6 is kind of the sweet spot for a team. But she also has inherited a group of direct reports that just got out of school. And as we know, so many young people weren't even in person the first or maybe even second year of school. And so she's coming in with a lot of challenges as a brand new leader. And it's kind of like sink or swim. So I bring that up because this is the reason that we really need to invest in leadership development. And what I have found is that most companies, if they're even investing in leadership development, they're investing in $500 a day. Or sorry, $500 for the year. What am I saying? $500 for the year, which is crazy. Most households are going to spend $500 on coffee for the year. These are the people that have the greatest influence in your company to help create the culture that you want, to innovate, to develop high performance. We have to invest in these leaders so that they can succeed, so that companies can succeed. And going back to those 9 inner game skills, so they work on a continuum. And what I have found in the research is that when 4 out of 9 of these skills are developed, we have really incredible results. And so I'm going to share those with you now. So there has been a lot of research that I've done on these capabilities, and in a program that I delivered to directors and above at a very large financial institution, we found that when 4 out of 9 leadership capabilities increased, there was 50% increase in psychological safety in their teams. There was a 75% increase in empathy. There was a 38% higher retention rate compared to those who were not part of the program. There was a 71% higher performance compared to those who were not part of the program. And there was a 2.5 higher promotion rate compared to those who did not take the program. This research has been vetted by many advisors. One of them is Amy Edmondson. Some of you might know of her. She has studied psychological safety extensively for over 25 years at Harvard University. She also endorsed my book, which I'm so grateful for, and she has been a lead advisor on all of this research and a deep mentor of mine. And I also wanted to share that I have developed a leadership assessment that's assessing all of the 9, and that's going to be part of the Conscious Leadership Lab that people will get. But I've also developed a team and well-being assessment because, again, the inner game relates to the outer game. So if you're developing all of these wonderful leadership capabilities, it is also going to impact your team. And so the trust and well-being assessment is looking at, does trust go up? Does belonging go up? Does teamwork go up? Forgiveness, accountability, social sensitivity, psychological safety, collective well-being, attitude to risk and fail. Because if we can't develop that, we're not going to innovate. We don't feel like we can make mistakes with our team. And these are all also looked at the beginning. So when I worked with executive teams and teams in general, I give the conscious leadership assessment, which is focusing on the inner, the individual. And I also assess the team to see, okay, how do these interact and what do we really need to focus on in our team coaching? I am also a team coach. I've done 10,000 hours of group facilitation. So I love group coaching, and that's a big component of this Conscious Leadership Lab program. But I also started off as an executive coach as I then evolved into L&D H&R partner. So let me continue to talk with you about the Conscious Leadership Lab. And I'll pause just for a moment to see if anyone has questions before I go into the deeper aspect of the program. Does anyone have questions at the moment? No? Okay. All right, great. So what is the Conscious Leadership Lab? And I wanted to go ahead and just pop the link in the chat. For those of you that have signed up, I'm also going to be sending out an additional. Oh, and I'm sorry, Scott, I didn't see. You're property manager at Union Steward. Thank you so much for being here in the St. Louis area. I was very focused on the folks in the audience that I forgot to look at the chat box. So this is the Conscious Leadership Lab. So you'll be able to kind of follow along as I go through the program. And essentially, there are 6 weeks of synchronous and asynchronous learning. There's micro learning, there's audios, there's videos, there's peer learning, and there's group coaching. And when folks sign up, and that could be right now, the course actually starts August 13th. So next week on Tuesday is the first public offering. I'm also going to be offering another course in October. And it's a cohort of 12. I've really found that that's the sweet spot for folks as far as learning and growing and engaging and intimacy and connection. When it's bigger than that, I find that people feel left out. They don't feel like they can chime in. And I really want to create transformation in these programs as much as I can and really support habit formation over time. So they start with a week of pre-learning, and that's where they're talking about the foundations of conscious leadership. There's some videos. They take the conscious leadership assessment, which I've already talked about, and they figure out where they are on the 9. And then they have the choice to be able to pick, okay, which one do I really want to learn and grow? They're also given a pretty in-depth leadership report based on their assessment to understand, what do these 9 mean? How do I improve them? What are some of the skills and the practices that I can do? They're also encouraged to get my book. My book is the course reader for the course, and everything integrates in from the modules back to the book. And the other aspect of the course is that we're really empowering them to choose which leadership capability that they want. If I was rolling this out with an organization, there probably would be more alignment with the values of that organization or what the organizational goals are. And that is available as well. This is a public offering. Leaders from all industry sectors can join, and I'm imagining I'm going to have more than 1 or 2 cohorts. So people will be, joining in as they can. And for folks that, August 13th is not the right date, we'd really love to have a customized private version of this course. Carly, can you bring that to us? Yes, I totally can. I'd be excited to do that. So feel free to reach out. And there's also group coaching. So group coaching, in my experience, has been really impactful because it leverages the collective knowledge and wisdom of the group and the individuals that are able to share common problems, identities. It's really a facilitation with their peers that enables us to build critical leadership skills while also working through real life scenarios. And as I shared, I have over 10,000 hours of facilitation. And I've also trained many facilitators and coaches because I have designed and developed multiple leadership programs where I've had to bring in other coaches and facilitators to scale it. So for example, at Bank of Montreal, which was Bank of the West, I developed a first-time manager program, and that was scaled to 500 leaders over 3 years. So I had a team of 6 and other facilitators that were part of dispersing that program out to the 9,000 folks that were in that company. Leslie, welcome. We're just going through the nitty-gritty of the Conscious Leadership Lab. And the other aspect that folks get in this program is one executive coaching session. Now, I wish I could offer more, but I'm trying to keep the price point really accessible. So that allows them to work with me or one of the other coaches on my team to really get more individualized support in addition to the group coaching. Folks that are participating in this, there's a lot of asynchronous content that they're learning on their own. And then we meet once a week for 1 hour, and that is more of a high-level capstone. So what is encouraged is that they've already reviewed the material before we're meeting, so that it's more of a review, and then we can have more of an experiential session. There's also peer learning that they're going to be doing 3 times during the course, and they'll be assigned a peer, and there's very specific exercises that they're being invited to do. And what else? Let's see. What are the modules for the course? So this is all in the sales page that I've shared with you, but it's being a conscious leader in complex times, empathetic leadership, cultivating healthy conflict. And in this particular one, and again, this all goes back, there's different aspects of this that are very much related to my book, but healthy conflict also goes into trauma-informed leadership. And that's something I feel very passionate about because whether or not we want to talk about it or not, we all are navigating some individual trauma and collective trauma. What is happening in the world and what is happening at home does show up at work. And I was trained as a therapist before I moved into L&D. I've also done some extensive training with Thomas Hubel and his collective trauma healing program. So I feel very adept to create environments where people are leading from a place of skill versus harm. And most leaders and most people can say, I had a horrible manager. I had a horrible leader. Well, guess what? That person didn't want to be that way. They didn't want to obviously lead from that place and create harm and have teams, really worried about, oh my gosh, we just got a new leader. Who's this leader going to be? What are they going to bring, right? Because the last one was horrible. There is that. They are inheriting, teams are inheriting that experience. So we need to have these conscious leadership skills that have a different experience. They create healing instead of harm. And that's going to instill more psychological safety, more trust, more belonging, more innovation, more high performance, more empathy, all of these wonderful things that we want our leaders to be embodying. And going back into the rest of the modules, I have a session focused on nurturing well-being. Again, we can only be leaders that are really equipped to handle the complexities if we're nurturing our own well-being and then modeling that and encouraging that in our reports and our teams. And we also are going to be focusing on building belonging, inspiring purpose and meaning. And why is inspiring purpose and meaning so important right now? Well, the majority of our workforce, which is 60%, are Gen Z and millennials. And there are 4 things that they have basically mandated that they really want in their managers and leaders. They want a leader or a manager who is open, approachable, empathetic, cares about their well-being. So again, this is why these modules are really important and are meeting the need that we have. They want a leader who is ethical and transparent in their communication. So an aspect, of this program is, again, how do we really have effective conversations? How do we create healthy conflict? Because conflict is going to happen. And then they also want to work for a company that has a greater purpose to do good in the world. So again, leaders need to be able to inspire that purpose. And why is the business selling or doing what it's doing? Is that somehow linked to a greater purpose? And this is where the leader is able to convey that and engage the team and their direct reports in that mission, in that purpose. And so we talk about how to influence that. And that also supports the leader to feel engaged at work, right? They're connected to that purpose. That's why they're working there. So what are the skills they're going to walk away with? Team management, inclusive leadership skills, so important. Effective communication skills, leading a hybrid and remote team, trauma-informed leadership, being self-aware and empathetic leaders, enhancing the mental health and well-being in themselves and their teams. And then lastly, how to set up and sustain psychological safety and trust in their teams and their one-on-ones. This hasn't been revealed yet, but I actually created a LinkedIn Learning course on how to set up psychological safety in your one-to-ones. And so I'm waiting, but I think it's going to come out in a week or two. So I will include that as an addition to the content and the curriculum that's already in this lab. And the other aspect of this course is that folks are going to get a certificate of completion as well. So they can, share that on LinkedIn. That can be also just a benefit for the program. I just rolled this out to 12 HR leaders, and they all got their certificates, and a few of them have posted them on LinkedIn. So, and then the last thing that I want to share is the cost. I've really researched abroad what the costs are for various leadership development, and this is unfortunately why companies aren't investing in their leaders, because I think they're too high for where the economy is and for where companies feel like they can invest. And so I've purposely put this at a price point that is accessible and allows people to get the training that they need now. So that's what I wanted to share about the program. And now I'd really love to open it up to Q&A. Does anyone have any questions? And Leslie, I know that you showed up a little bit late, but this is being recorded, so you'll get the recording.
I guess, Carly, how much time outside of kind of the organized calls or videos is expected to be able
Yes,
to
that's a great question. So
be able to get the most out of the program?
I would say 2 hours a week. So 2 hours a week would be 1 hour for the asynchronous learning, and potentially, some weeks they're meeting with their peers, some weeks they're not, and 1 hour for the live coaching, the group coaching. Yeah. So most people can do 2 hours a week, they can do 1 hour at the gym. All of this is accessible. The other aspect actually of the course, which I forgot to mention, is the platform that I'm using. There is a group component, so people can be messaging each other, they can be sharing. There's a real way to stay connected and engaged, almost like they had a Slack channel, right? So that's really important to keep people connected, because they're going to be all across the globe. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay. If there are no more questions, thank you so much for coming. I did try to be very thorough, so I'm glad that I answered maybe the majority of what might have been there. Thank you so much for attending. This recording will be sent out later, and if anyone is interested in having a private version of the Conscious Leadership Lab that's more customized to their company and their organizational goals and their needs, that's why I created it. And it's not 6 to 9 months like I have typically offered, internally for companies, but I do think it will meet a very important need right now. Thank you so much, and I wish you all a wonderful day.